Now let's talk about the role of board of directors in explaining or defining the risk appetite statements. So the prime responsibility of defining and communicating the risk appetite statements and policy to the stakeholder lies with board of directors. Now the risk appetite statement can either be quantitative or it can either be qualitative. So if the risk appetite statement comes from a mathematical model such as value at risk, it will be quantitative, like you will be saying that you will be maintaining the value at risk at $10 million. Or if it's qualitative, you will be say that every staff in the institution would be aware of the risk management practices in the bank, or you will have such culture where risk is considered to be a critical part of risk management program. So there are a number of ways in which we can define risk appetite. The first method is that we explicitly express the risk that we want to retain. So we define a strategy, we mention the risk, whether we want to avoid it, whether we want to mitigate it, or whether we want to transfer it. So we explicitly mention what strategy do we have that for that particular risk. So that one day, if there's a treasurer in the treasury department who comes forward and say that this is an additional risk that we are taking, you may show them the risk appetite framework and tell them that yes, we are aware of this risk, but we have decided to accept this risk within these limits. So the first method is you just explicitly express the risk. The second is quantitative metrics. So value at risk is one such models. We can use models to set risk appetite in quantitative form. So for example, we can say that the maximum VAR of USD 10 million per day. Now this limit will be followed by all business persons. It will be introduced in the trading systems, so they don't just have the ability operationally to exceed the VAR from $10 million. And then you will have a CRO, the Chief Risk Officer, who will be monitoring it. The third step is, the third way of defining risk appetite is through stress testing. So we can set risk appetite based on different stress levels. So we can say that stress level 1 is low, where the value at risk would be $5 million. Then we have medium stress level, where the value at risk would be $7.5 million. And then we have high stress, where the value at risk would be $10 million. We also classify this as soft limits and this as hard limits. So these limits are most of the trigger. So we are not stopping anyone to do business, but we are letting them know that you are reaching that hard limit where you won't be able to do your business. So you must be aware of what you are doing and be cautious about the positions that you are about to take, so that you don't just breach that hard limit that the organization has set. Of course, we have talked about value at risk. There are a number of risks. There are a number of approaches through which we can identify and we can implement our risk appetite statements. Now let's discuss this very critical aspect of the issue or the dichotomy between bondholders and shareholders. This, we consider it as one of the major challenges to identify and to resolve the conflict between debt holder and shareholders while deciding the risk appetite statement. So basically, whenever we are defining our risk appetite statement, which is responsibility of board of director, they have to take care of both bondholders and shareholders. Why? Because the objectives of both parties are different. Debt holders, they have the money to take back from the organization, and they are not concerned about the profit. All they are concerned about is to minimize the risk so that they can get their money back. So they want organization to remain risk averse. They don't want organization to take any additional risk through which they can lose their money. On the other hand, shareholders are the one who get return out of the firms. So they are actually willing to accept more risk to increase the returns, and when they are willing to take additional risk to make return, they can also have losses on their books. So you understand, these are actually two opposite side of parties with opposite interests. So one party want the organization to remain risk averse, and the other party want organization to be a risk taker. So it's the responsibility of the board to ensure that expectations are defined for both of the stakeholders. There should be a match. There should be a line where the organization should not just be risk averse and don't do any sort of business, and they don't just start taking a lot of risk to be able to please the shareholders. So there has to be a strategy which has to be set by the board of directors. So basically, while setting the risk appetite statement, the board should communicate the following aspects. Number one is that they should establish risk appetite statement for external communication. So basically, generally speaking, in the annual report, major risks are identified, and the organization actually disclose their critical risk and how they are managing it. Number two, they should also develop detailed statement for internal communication. So for the external communication, it would be just a few lines mentioning the critical risk and how they are going about it. But for the internal communication, it should be more detailed. It talk about the implementation strategy, how they are managing it, why it's critical, and who will be the line managers who will be responsible for it. The idea is to understand the enterprise level expectation and manage both internal and external holders and keep them in confidence that the organization is actually very serious and it's doing everything that it can to manage the financial risk. Now these risk appetite statements, this detailed operational level risk appetite statement should be used for business decision making. So whoever the line manager is, he should be concerned about his limits. He should be concerned about the risk strategy that is being adopted by the board of directors. It should also be considered while deciding the business planning cycles. So what are the risks that are being taken? What happens is when there's a period of low business or there is a recession environment, the staff tend to take higher risk to be able to achieve their business targets. So your business target should be defined as the business planning cycle, and the organization should ensure that the employees are not taking any additional risk. And in the end, we should the document should identify major challenges where mitigation is required. So if you have taken a collateral, if you have taken a security, if you have taken a guarantee, the organization should aware what are the challenges. Will they be able to liquidate that particular collateral? Are there any litigation issues in liquidation of that particular collateral? So you lent $10 million and you have collateral available for $10 million, but you cannot sell it because of some local laws. So you should be concerned about the challenges that you may face while implementing the risk strategies. Then another critical aspect is risk mapping. So it's all good, you have established your risk appetite, which is also very critical, but then we should also know what sort of risk that we have, what sort of cash flows that we are seeing, and what are its size and timing. So if you don't able to map your risk well, we talk about hedging your exposure. So while doing the hedging, while mitigating your risk, you should be well aware of what sort of risk do they have. Let's discuss this through an example. This is an example of a manufacturer which depends on a commodity, for example, copper. So copper is considered to be the 50% of the cost of goods sold, or it's the major cost, or it's a major requirement for that particular business. Without copper, he cannot produce his products. So and the prices of copper, it remains volatile. There's a lot of volatility in the copper market. So the manufacturer should know the amount of the copper that firms need. So does it need 10 kgs, 100 kgs, 100 tons? What would be the amount? So to map your risk well, the organization should be aware of the amount of copper that firms need. Do you need it 100 tons or do you need it 1000 tons? So what is the amount that you are looking forward? And of course it will be future looking. So we are talking about 1 year requirement of copper. And when will it be required? When we will actually be needing the copper? So if you have your inventory available for 6 months, you may not need it for 6 months, but you will be needing it after 6 months. So when do we require it? Then where it will be delivered? So we are talking about manufacturing. We are not talking about hedging it in the commodity market. We are talking about physical delivery of copper. So the firm can have a company in the US, it can have a company in Canada, in Mexico, in China. So where does it actually require the copper? So you have purchased, you have managed your risk well, but instead of US, the copper was required in the Chinese market. And of course, since it's a physical delivery, you cannot just deliver it to another country without the cost, and you of course did not account for the delivery cost because you are expecting it to be delivered in the USA market. So where do we deliver it is one of the key aspects when we are mapping our risk. And in the end, we should also know what's the price like. We should also know what's the price like. So basically, if the average is about $100 per unit and you are expecting copper price to increase to $130 per unit, you may say that, if I get a copper between 110 to 120 per unit, I'll be okay with it, and I'll be able to manage the cost that goes into the pricing of that particular product, and through that I'll be able to manage my risk of pricing well. So the key concept is that we have to ensure that there's a minimum gap in the risk mapping process.